Hi friends, it's Miss Stevenson with you again. This week I want to do another art activity with you, and this week I wanted to talk about a very famous artist that used to live in the United States, and his name is Jackson Pollock. And Jackson Pollock was very, very famous for a painting style that people called action painting. And what he would do is he would splatter paint on a canvas, and his paintings didn't really look like anything that you could recognize. He didn't paint scenes of houses or buildings or forests or anything like that. He just would overlap colors on top of each other, many, many colors, and he would drip them in ways that were interesting to him. And this was called action painting. Now, he would paint on really big, something called canvas, and he would lay it on the floor and then drip the paint all over the canvas, okay? And this is what one of his paintings looks like. This is a Jackson Pollock painting. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see. And you can see the drip marks all over the painting. He would layer many, many different colors on top of each other. And his paintings would be very big. So in this painting, you probably can't see from the camera, but I can see orange and yellow and gray and black and white and light brown and dark brown. I see some blue. He's got so many colors layered on top of each other, and you can see exactly where all the drips landed. And he wouldn't just use these colors, sometimes he would use other colors as well. He would make paintings that were brighter than this as well. So today I thought it would be fun to show you how to make a painting kind of look like a Jackson Pollock painting. We're not going to do it exactly the same way that he did it. He would paint with very, very, he would make his paint kind of runny so that it would drip really well. And to do that, he would put water in his paint. And we're going to do a little bit of that. But he, like I said, he would lay his canvases or his paper on the floor and then really do a lot of dripping like this. But he had a special workspace that he would work in that he could make really, really messy. And we don't have something like that in our houses, right? So I'm going to show you how to make a painting that looks kind of similar to how Jackson Pollock would paint, but we're going to do it a little bit differently so that we're not so messy, okay? And you always have to remember before you get paints out, if you have paints at home and you're going to try this activity, you always have to remember that you ask a grown-up first and let them know what your plan is so that they can help you maybe put some newspaper down or a tablecloth down that you're allowed to get messy, just in case you spill or something like that, right? You always want to make sure that the grown-ups in your house know what your plan is and know that it can get a little bit messy before you just start doing it. And if you don't have paint at home, you can still watch, and maybe this is something that you can try to remember if you'd like to try it at a later time when you do have paint, okay? Alrighty, so the first thing that I have done is I got a shoebox and I cut the top off the shoebox. So now it just looks like a box. Okay. And I have a piece of paper that I have cut to fit inside the shoebox. And I'm going to splatter my paint, a little bit of paint at a time in here. And then that way the drips stay inside the shoebox and they don't get all over the place. Okay, so the next thing I need is a tray to put some paint in. I've already used this one, so it's a little bit dirty, but all of this inside is dry, so I can use it again. And I'm going to use some dark blue. And some red. And some yellow. I got some yellow. And some white. All right. Bye-bye. You never know what's going to happen around here, friends. Okay. So I've got my red and yellow and white and blue in here. I know it's hard to see because I've got so many other dried colors in there. And I've got some water in my container here. And when Jackson Pollack would do this, he would sometimes use sticks. He wouldn't always use paintbrushes. He would sometimes use cooking tools like turkey basters that he would fill up with paint and then squirt all over the canvas. Sometimes he would use paintbrushes that were really, really hard on the, they weren't soft on the ends anymore. They were hard because he had used them so many times. And sometimes he would use sticks that he would dip in the paint and splash the paint on. So he would use different kinds of materials to do this. Sometimes artists are very creative and inventive when they're figuring out the ways that they like to paint. They don't always do things the same as other people. Okay? All right. So I have my paint, my red paint on here. I don't know if you can tell, but it's not dripping. So I need to put a little bit more water because we want it to be drippy. Nope, still not dripping. So see how I'm just adding a little bit from my paintbrush at a time? I'm not dumping the water in. I'm just adding a little bit at a time. Because if we make the paint too watery, then the color doesn't show up very well. Oh, now it's dripping. And I'm just getting, oh, and if I knock it on the side of the box, that helps the paint to fall off too. And we want to make sure that we keep the paint inside the box so that we don't make a gigantic mess, right? We have to be respectful of our house and our space. So I'm just letting, when you paint like this, it's called abstract painting, and you can't really control how the paint's going to fall. You just have to kind of accept where it's going to fall. Okay, so that's the red so far. And I'll probably add more red a little later, but next I'm going to do blue. Okay, here we go. Next is blue. Okay, so I've added some water to my blue and it's getting a little bit runny. It's starting to drip. I'm going to add a little bit more water. Here we go. Maybe a little bit more water. There. Mine's more drippy than splattering. which is fine. I don't mind. There we go. There, now it's drippy. And sometimes the blue is landing beside the red, and sometimes it's landing right on top of the red, and they're mixing together. And I kind of like the way that looks. I think that looks super neat. So the more colors you start to add, the more layers you add, the more interesting the painting starts to look. And of course, when you're done, you have a neat little box to just leave it in. You can just set it aside for a while to dry, right? There we go. Okay. I don't know what game my kids are playing in the next room, friends, but they are loud. I don't know if you can hear them. Okay. Alrighty. Here's the yellow. I think I need to still add a little bit more water. And I'm going to splatter. Ooh. And of course, if you have more colors at home, you can add whatever colors you have. You can add even more colors. I'm just going to add these 3. You can add even more. You can add purple, black, gray, brown, orange, pink, whatever you have, whatever you want. You can do a splatter painting or an action painting with one color. I could have just added more red, put a whole bunch of red on one page and stopped with that. You can add a few splatters on your page, or you can do it like Jackson Pollack and really, really, really cover the whole thing. When it's your art, you are the artist and you decide when it's done, right? It's done whenever you're happy with it. No one can really tell an artist when their work is done. You just have to know for yourself. That's starting to look really neat. See there? You can see how all the colors are kind of splashing together. Sometimes they land separately and sometimes they land right on top of each other. Like if you look here, I've got red and blue and yellow all swirling together in that spot. They all landed in the same spot. So that's starting to look like an action painting. Now, another way that you can do an action painting, I have one other technique to show you. So you can splatter the paint like that, if you're allowed, if you ask your grown-ups and they say yes, or you can do something like this. This gets the same sort of effect, but you need to be careful because you don't want the marbles to roll off and hit the floor because you can get paint on the floor, okay? So I have marbles here. I have chosen 3 different sized marbles for mine. You really only need 1 marble. You don't need more than 1. I just kind of wanted to show the marks that different marbles would make. I have a pie plate and I've cut a piece of paper to fit inside the pie plate. Okay, I just had to cut it with some scissors. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to put my marble in some paint. Okay, and I'm just going to roll it back and forth. This also kind of looks like a Jackson Pollack painting to me. All right, it's a little bit more controlled than splattering. Your grown-ups at home might not want you to do the splattering way, but maybe this way would be okay. All right, I'm going to put another marble in the red paint. and roll it all around. And doing it this way, see how I'm not tilting the pie plate a huge amount, right? It doesn't take much to make the marble roll all around. And I'm going to add another kind of blue, I think. You could also do the marble, if you don't have a pie plate, you could do the marble technique in here too. You can put down a clean piece of paper and roll the marble all around in here, right? Okay. And let's do the smaller marble. Ooh. See this one? I just put paint straight out of the tube. It doesn't roll as easily because the paint is thicker. You might want to add some water to your paint before you do this because the marble sticks in the thick paint. But it still works. Here. So I don't know if you can tell, but I've got really wide tracks and I've got really, really skinny tracks. The bigger marble makes wide tracks and the smaller marble makes skinnier tracks. I want more red, so I'm going to put the big marble in red. Roll it all around. There, I like that. So again, you can use whatever colors you have, and then look at that. Isn't that cool? It makes a really, really neat action painting. You can use whatever colors you have at home. You can use one color or many colors. It's totally up to you and up to the materials that you have at home. All right. I hope you have a lot of fun with this, friends. Don't forget, you need to set them aside in a spot where they can dry and they won't be disturbed. And always, always, always make sure you ask a grown-up first before you get paint out, and make sure that they know you're planning to do something that could get a little messy. All right, have fun. We'll see you next time.